I am Rebecca Lucky. I'm the Sustainability Manager with the City of Menlo Park. Been working for the city for 10 years and happy to be here this morning to talk to you about zero emission landscaping equipment and the direction the city could be taking in regards to rules on how to use gas-powered landscaping equipment in Menlo Park. And so for the person that just joined, I'm going to give a presentation. It's probably less than 20 minutes, and then there'll be some time for questions and answers as well. And this presentation is being recorded, so it'll be uploaded later as well. And you can feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions after this presentation or webinar, and be happy to answer them. So let's get our presentation started here. So let's see. So I just want to make sure everyone's able to see the screen since I'm the only person on. Maybe if someone just could raise their hand and let me know if you can see my screen. Maybe Lisa, if you could let me know. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so again, we're here to talk about making the move from gas to electric gardening equipment. And what I'm going to cover today is a couple areas. Get my screen to move here. So we're going to go over the proposed Menlo Park rules and the process for adopting those rules. Go over the state discount program for electric gardening equipment that's for gardening professionals and landscapers. And I'm going to go over to what we're hearing from gardening professionals based on our outreach to date, and then tips on how to transition and support gardeners as we kind of pave a new pathway toward how gardening equipment is used in Menlo Park. And then there'll be questions and answers at the end. There is a Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Because I'm giving the presentation, I won't be able to kind of answer in real time. But if you can start to populate them, then at the end, I could try to answer some questions. I see a hand raised. Maybe it's because you want to ask a question or you're letting me know that you can see my screen, but I just want to double check. Lisa, did you have a question? You'd have to unmute yourself. Okay, I don't think so. So I am going to lower your hand. All right. So why are we considering rules? There has been a lot of research on this topic at the state level, and I'll kind of go over even where the state's going with electrification of gardening equipment. But really what they have found through their research is that small off-road engines, which we refer to as SOAR equipment, really are not as highly regulated as we have been doing with cars. So cars have Cadillac converters. We've, as a state, made rules about the efficiency of, or fuel efficiency of cars. And so that's really helped us see a decline in emissions from vehicles. And again, the reality is that we live in highly urban areas. And so air quality is an extreme issue in California, especially since we have a lot of microclimates or mountain ranges that tend to keep the pollution kind of in a certain area for quite some time until the wind comes through, or people who are downwind tend to suffer. And so what they're seeing with SOAR equipment, the small off-road engine equipment, is that over the next several years that we're going to see, if we don't do anything now, we're going to see that the smog emissions that come from small off-road engines will actually exceed all of the emissions from cars in California. I think it's important to really note too that small off-road engines, most of that equipment is 70% gardening equipment. A lot of it is just business and homeowner use, and then there is a portion that's professional gardeners and landscapers as well. And just to give people a sense, because I didn't know this when I started kind of researching this, but the California Air Resources found that really kind of how do we place a visual on how much emissions is created through 1 hour use of a leaf blower. And what they have kind of found or equated that to is driving basically 15 hours. So 1 hour of a leaf blower use is equal to producing the same amount of smog as driving from LA to Denver. And 1 hour use of a lawnmower is equal to driving 300 miles from LA to Las Vegas. And I think I've gotten quite a few questions about kind of why that is. And, with leaf blowers, at least what I do know is that you're using a mixture of gas and oil that is, which forms more emissions. And again, there's not a lot of regulations around reducing the emissions that come out of this type of equipment. And so that leads to a lot of health issues for the community and also particularly for the workers who are using them. And you'll often see that a lot of times they're not wearing any protective gear as well. And so it does lead to nervous system damage. It causes cardiovascular issues, lung issues as well. And so, there's just numerous reasons why the state and the city is looking at this topic and how can we move forward and transition. So as I kind of mentioned, kind of the overall environmental and health impacts, and residents have also been really concerned about the noise as well. And they've all mentioned, the pollution and worker health and safety. And so we've been hearing residents ask the city to do something about the use of gas-powered leaf blowers over the last several years. And so in October, staff went to city council through a study session, talked about kind of what other cities are doing, where we could potentially go. And we also looked at kind of, once the leaf blowers are transitioned, there's all of this other landscaping equipment that is also just as harmful, noisy, and affect worker health. So we decided to kind of look at the whole landscape, no pun intended, of gardening equipment, and kind of how can we again get people to transition from gas-powered gardening equipment to electric. And so we're also building upon a new California law that will prohibit the sale, not the use, of gas-powered gardening equipment. So the state is going to start that implementation of this law January 1st of 2024. So it's just around the corner. And as part of their kickoff to really motivating manufacturers to make more electric equipment that's better, they are putting forward about $24 million in incentives for landscapers and gardeners. And that started in November of last year in 2022. And I'm going to go over some of that program later. So Menlo Park's proposed regulation would apply to all properties. And it would begin to really start enforcement for leaf blowers and string trimmers, or also known as weed whackers, starting July 1st of 2024. And then the kind of rest of the gas-powered equipment would start to be regulated January 1st of 2029. So again, as I mentioned, staff went to city council in October. We got direction. The council really asked that, while they were supportive of rules, they really wanted more outreach one-on-one with landscapers and gardeners. They're a very hard group to reach because they're very mobile. They don't live in the city, most of them. And so trying to track them down it's been easy in the fact that you can drive around, or I ride my bike around and talk to professionals, but trying to get the information and continue contact, that's what we've been really working on. And so what we've started to do in February and March is we've got a survey up, and we're holding webinars like the one today for the public. And we have separate webinars for landscaping and gardening professionals. And I do want to kind of let everybody know, if you haven't already, to check out our webpage. There's Spanish translation available too on the webpage. There's a little icon you can click on the top and it'll translate the page to Spanish. But it's basically, you type in your browser menlopark.gov /ZELE, Z-E-L-E. And we've also got our survey up. So let me go back to the web page. So the web page has information about the discounts. It has the proposed rules. It'll also post, when we're going to be going to council. So if you subscribe to the page, you'll get regular updates of where we are in the progress of going to council for final adoption of a rule. And then the survey was launched, I want to say probably early February, late January. We've gotten probably like 400 or 500 responses already. We haven't gotten a lot of responses from gardeners or landscapers, so we're really hoping to kind of continue to push and outreach and get some feedback from gardeners and landscapers. But the way to access the survey it's a different kind of address, but you go to publicinput.com/ZELE, or for the Spanish translation, you just add an S to the end of ZELE. So it's same address, publicinput.com/ZELE with an S. And so anyway, if you have a gardener, landscaper, please encourage them to fill out the survey. So our next stop is next month at the Environmental Quality Commission. So the Environmental Quality Commission is an advisory body to the City Council. So staff is hoping to bring a draft ordinance or a rule to the Environmental Quality Commission, and also let them know what we've heard from the survey and the feedback from the gardeners and landscapers. And then they would ultimately provide their advice to the City Council. And then after we make our stop at the Environmental Quality Commission, we would be going to City Council late April or May, and the City Council will consider adopting the proposed zero emission landscaping equipment regulations. And that's really the final opportunity for feedback. Usually there's 2 readings. So there's a first reading and there's a second reading. So there's actually kind of 2 opportunities within that time frame. And if the regulations or rules get adopted, we will continue public engagement. So there will be a kind of a notification sent to the community and gardeners and landscapers that the City Council has adopted a rule, and if here's how you can transition, here are the resources that you can go to, and let us know if you need any help or assistance. So that's the plan in a nutshell. So I mentioned the state discount program as part of the new law that's going to be coming in effect on January 1st that will prohibit the sale of gas-powered landscaping equipment. And it's called California Core. And we again have information on our website, menlopark.gov/ZELE. And so I've kind of put some examples up here of the significant discounts that are really available to gardeners and landscapers. This is not available, unfortunately, for homeowners or non-gardening businesses. And I've been hearing feedback that residents are kind of asking about if there will be one. It's certainly something that we will bring forward as feedback to the EQC and the City Council as well. And so kind of stay tuned on that front. So I think one thing so my next slide kind of goes over where to get the equipment, but I do want to really highlight, like for example, this Stihl backpack battery operated leaf blower. The regular price is about $700. And so with the state discount program, a landscaper or gardener would be paying $300. And this is a newer product that still's produced. So a lot of the leaf blowers that were electric were more handheld. So this one is, from what I understand, more powerful than the handheld blowers, and the batteries last longer. And there's also power management systems. So also kind of what I learned through the stores and some of a landscaper who fully transitioned was that it's really important to make sure you've got electrical capacity on how you're charging. Usually it does require some level of maybe upgrading a panel or using power management equipment like this one, where you could plug in multiple batteries, but it'll maybe only charge 2 at a time. And once that's done, it'll move on to the next 2. And so that kind of helps save on upgrade cost. And then there's larger kind of cabinet-like power management systems over here as well. Again, normally costs $6,000. The discounted price right now is $1,800. And so the funds are moving very fast. I've talked to a few of these stores. And I think the beauty of this program is that the landscaper or gardener doesn't need to kind of go online or apply. They really just need to show up at the store, show that they've got a business license, a business card, or maybe they're a regular customer of these stores, and the store dealer can verify that, yes, this is a gardener and landscaper who is eligible for the discount. And so we've got a few of them close by: Ewing Garden Land Center in Campbell, Horizon Distributors, which is in Menlo Park, and San Mateo Lawnmower. So each one sells sometimes a certain brand. Some sell like all brands. So it's definitely good for the gardener and landscaper to shop around. So what have we been hearing from gardening professionals? So as I mentioned, we've been doing one-on-one outreach, but that really began as soon as we got direction from City Council in October, and it's really still ongoing. So in the sustainability division, there's myself, and I have another management analyst that works in the division. I've been out riding my bike, as I actually ride my bike to work. And so when I come in, I spend like maybe an hour or so trying to find gardeners, which is not really hard. And then also when I leave as well, and I give them information about the state discount program on electric equipment. On our webpage, I've created kind of a flyer that kind of shows what was on that last couple of slides, where this is the cost of the equipment and here's what you would pay, rather than trying to send them to a website. That's been pretty effective. I also try to collect their contact information so we can send information about discounts and webinars and transition tips. And we'll continue to use that information if rules do get adopted in May or April. So it'll be a really good catalog of folks' information where we can text, email, or mail them letters. And we've also asked their thoughts on transitioning. And community volunteers have also been a really big help. I mean, there's only so much ground we can cover, and the gardeners and landscapers are highly mobile. So, they may be at one site for 40 minutes and we just miss them. I've actually had to chase down probably trucks before because they were just leaving. So again, community volunteers, if you can, if you walk in your community, we do have materials that you can hand out. So that's helpful. And I'll go over that too in a few more slides. And so we have offered at least 3 webinars. And I think the last one is tomorrow morning, and we do have them recorded. So the first one we did, it was, I think, about 2 weeks ago, and the recording is up on our website, menlopark.gov Zelly. We did utilize Spanish interpreters as well, so the video is in English, or you can select Spanish. We did an interview with a gardener that has almost fully transitioned to 80% electric equipment. They've done that over the last 2 years. It's a really good interview. And then we also had a presentation from the store representatives offering the discounts. And they also offered tips on how to safely charge multiple batteries. And again, you can access the recording and webinar dates on our webpage. And we will also be emailing and texting the webinar recording in English and Spanish to gardeners for the contact information that we do have. So kind of the feedback that that has been coming across to us is that, you know, a lot of times when I've encountered gardeners or landscapers, they already have electric equipment in their truck because they do work in other cities with rules, but they still avoid using the equipment where possible, even in the cities that do have rules. And part of the reason is that they're saying that the battery life is very short. So, you know, if you're doing a job and you're kind of having the leaf blower on high or turbo, it lasts about 20 minutes. And so this then involves them purchasing a lot of batteries that they have to carry around and the whole kind of charging infrastructure that's needed. And then the other aspect is because the power of the electric equipment is not as great as the gas-powered equipment, it takes longer to complete a job. And I've looked into the specifications of gas versus electric, and it is, you know, that their comments are very much validated into that there is a significant power level, and it does take longer. And we've even heard that from our own kind of staff that use leaf blowers. And so for a small gardener, you know, who has a route of a certain amount of customers, it can really affect their bottom line. They might lose customers, or they need to hire more labor if all of a sudden a job that takes 40 minutes is now taking an hour. And there's a lot of language barriers I encountered as well. And there's also this other layer of hesitation in talking to customers about the transition and how to communicate that, and the cost to really address the high cost for equipment and all the extra batteries that they need, or even the increased labor. And so, you know, again, I think with any transition, I work in kind of a field where it's always requiring people to change in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, I think when we have talked to the landscaper that transitioned, there are a lot of good lessons to learn. I think part of it is rethinking about when you use a leaf blower, how you use it, and how can you still gain efficiencies. But the landscaper that did transition, if you go to the recorded webinar, you can kind of hear his conversation about how he transitioned. There still is a high upfront cost, and there's an investment that all of gardeners and landscapers need to make upfront. And so we do anticipate that there will be these conversations of what that means for customer costs. And we're hoping that the community can kind of really feel comfortable having the conversation with gardeners and landscapers, because I think ultimately that'll also make them feel comfortable and confident that they can make it and do this transition. And so another undertone of the conversations was the inability for the city to effectively enforce, which affects the transition. So this wasn't quite said outright, but in talking to some of the landscapers that work in Palo Alto who have restrictions on gas-powered leaf blowers and who also work at Menlo Park, there was kind of this sense of, you know, if somebody else is still using the gas-powered leaf blower and I'm not, and I have to change my pricing because the productivity is not at the same level, you know, they are feeling like there's still this competitiveness where they could lose their customer because someone else is still using a gas-powered leaf blower. And so I think it'll be really important for the city to look at how are we going to effectively enforce the transition so that gardeners and landscapers also feel that they have a fair, competitive pricing landscape when everyone's using electric equipment. A lot of them didn't know about the discount program or the new state law, so that was also part of the education component. I have checked in with the store dealers and have asked them, you know, are you seeing a lot more foot traffic from Menlo Park? And actually, one of the store owners was saying, like, I've seen so many people, thank you for all the outreach you've been doing. They mentioned some girl on a bike is telling them about the discount program, and they're walking into the store. And they've ordered a lot of equipment. So I think that's been a really positive outcome of the outreach. and again, speaks to kind of why we need volunteers to really help, because many still don't know about the discount program. And I think the one thing I did learn too is that a lot of them are really aware that they do need to transition at some point in the future. And if you watch the interview with EnviroViews, it's Armando Vega, he really talks about like why he transitioned, kind of what the barriers were. And there definitely is kind of, when somebody's been doing something for 20 or 30 years, it becomes very difficult to kind of see how else to do the work. You're just so used to doing it. And so a lot of times, like the landscapers I've been talking to, like the sons or the children, like who are kind of part of the business, are more interested in trying to figure out how to make it happen and trying to convince their parents that are operating the business on how to go about it. And that's exactly Armando's story. Like he used his own money to try to convince his family that this was going to work. And so it's definitely a lot of people trying to move the needle along. So how can you help? You can engage your gardener to fill out the survey. Again, it's publicinput.com, Zelly, and you add an S if you want it in Espanol or Spanish. You can send the webinar video to your gardener. I think that would be great as well. It's again on our webpage, and give them the equipment discount information. And these discounts, again, will not last. They are definitely going fast. I've heard from the stores that they're reserving so many electric equipment, like it's not even, like the manufacturers are not able to even keep up with the amount of equipment. So I anticipate that it's probably going to run out, probably by summertime at the rate it's going right now. So we're hoping to really, again, connect gardeners and landscapers with the discount program. And as I mentioned, if you're a walker in your neighborhood, you can actually pick up some materials at City Hall at the building division. So we already have a lot printed out. We usually give about 20 per volunteer, and you can hand it out to gardeners or kind of leave it on the truck where you see gardening equipment. Like I usually put it on the windshield between the wiper and the windshield. So I've gotten this question a lot too, and we're definitely going to, as part of the outreach, talk to landscapers and gardeners about how do you reduce the use of powered gardening equipment. And again, Armando from EnviroViews talked about, like, when do we really need to use a leaf blower? And I think if you're up for it, you can embrace a less manicured look and kind of let nature do its thing. And part of that's sometimes leaving the leaves lie, because that really does help build mulch, healthy soil, and habitat for pollinators and wildlife. They usually find warmth in the leaves and some other kind of benefits as well. There's also grass cycling. You can leave grass clippings on the lawn or use a mulching mower. I did not know what a mulching mower was, so I had to look that up. And basically it's kind of a mower without the bag, but it has kind of a finer pair of kind of cutting razors where it's finer, so you don't even kind of notice the clippings. It doesn't kind of build up. So that's also an option. And again, clippings are really beneficial for lawn, and they do decompose quickly and disappear quickly. And I've heard this from gardeners who have transitioned, and also residents, that we need to kind of do more outreach around avoiding the use of leaf blowers around plantings, because they really erode and compact the soil, and it damages the habitat for beneficial insects and pollinators. And again, I'm talking a lot about pollinators, but there really is a worldwide problem with pollinators. Their populations are shrinking. And if you're wondering what pollinators are, those are ants, beetles, wasps, lizards, birds, bats, and butterflies. They all find refuge in leaves and kind of landscaping material that's around. And the EPA is really working to protect bees and other pollinators, because of course, if they're not around, it starts to affect our food chain in lots of ways that are not good for us or other creatures. And so you can also reduce or replace your lawn, again, if you're up for it. Lawns do use a lot of water. They take a lot of labor to maintain. they do account for large quantities of fertilizer and gasoline use. And I don't know if you know, but Menlo Park does offer a rebate program to replace your lawn. So it's $2 per square foot of lawn replaced with water conserving plants, and an additional $300 if you kind of create a rain garden where it's kind of got that sunken look, like it's almost like a dry stream. And you can find out more information at on our webpage on water conservation. So that's menlopark.gov /water conservation if you're looking for more information about the rebate. And you can also kind of go in there and get ideas of kind of planting or gardens. I took some examples from Sunset on how a garden could look without a lawn. You can also use a broom or a rake, does take longer, or try a lawn sweeper. So if you're kind of doing this on your own, you maintain your own garden or lawn. Lawn sweepers work by using thin, fast rotating brushes, and they pick up, it's like kind of like a vacuum cleaner basically. And so that can also help if you're looking to not have anything on your lawn. And also on our Zelly webpage, we do have reviews on electric equipment. It kind of refers you back to the California Air Resources Board, but I've gone through them, and they're mostly kind of for residents, I'd say, not for gardeners. I would advise gardeners or landscapers to talk to dealers about which kind of electric equipment would work best for their operations. But if you're, again, doing your own gardening, I think those testimonials that the California Air Resources Board has are pretty good. And they have leaf blowers, lawn mowers, hedge trimmers. So I recommend that as well. And since I work in sustainability, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about battery disposal. There's always a trade-off, again, when we're trying to do the better environmental behavior or use the better environmental technology. And so, yeah, battery disposal and use of batteries, we're going to have to work through what that looks like in the future and how we reuse batteries, and how, again, maybe how can we not use them as much to kind of preserve the life of batteries. But if you need to dispose of batteries, you can go to the Shoreway. They're open Monday through Saturday from 8:30 to 4. And I got a map here. It's off the 101. You take Holly Street exit, kind of wind your way through, make a left, and there's a Shoreway Environmental Center. They take a lot of other material too. If you've got small amounts of hazardous waste, it's free. So that's a really good option. You can make an appointment with San Mateo County Household Hazardous Waste, or you can also call them and find out where the nearest drop-off event is. And then we do know that Cal to recycle, there's these bins around Lowe's and Home Depots. You can drop off batteries for free there, but we do recommend calling before you go to confirm, because sometimes things change. And that's the end of my presentation.